Alex, I couldn't agree with you more about parents being superheroes. Mine are here, and they're my superheroes. In fact, I'm going to start talking about my mother, also known as Wheezy. In 2000, she started wearing the hijab. What's a hijab? This is a hijab. It's nothing weird. It's just an Arabic word. It means veil or head cover. And many Muslim women wear a hijab. It's not required of us. I don't wear one. But my mother started wearing one in 2000. But prior to that, she looked like any other mother. A beautiful American woman raising her kids and her family. She was just the all-American mom. She attended all the PTA meetings. She went to all our baseball games. Not mine, my brother's. She went to basketball games. My dad worked tirelessly to keep the family solvent. Well, he also studied to go to medical school. They did the best they could. But my mother is also a refugee. A refugee, someone who loses their home. And at the age of 16, my mom and 17 family members were forced into a tank to escape. They lived in Jerusalem for many decades, many centuries, peacefully with Jews, Christians, and Muslims. In fact, my grandfather had a very, very solid business where he employed all these people. And they lived there very happily until one day their home was about to be taken. And so they got in this tank, and behind them was my uncle, the picture of my uncle. It's my mom's oldest brother. And he followed them in the pickup truck in a way that he thought would protect them. But in that moment, my uncle lost his life because he was shot and killed as he was trying to protect his family. I'm sure that was hard on my mom. She doesn't talk about it much. But the family still escaped, and they went to Jordan. That's where they sought refuge. And they started to build a life there. My mom and her sister started sewing to help the family make money. Everybody had a job and a position. And 2 weeks later, my grandfather, who had stayed behind to close up the family business, was in a coffee shop having discussions with other men who stayed behind, and a bomb went off in that coffee shop. And he died. I never got to know my grandfather. But in those 2 weeks, my mom lost her brother and her father. But my mom's a survivor, and she got educated, and she met my father, and they came to the United States, where they both worked tirelessly to give us the best life they could. My father always says, "You're American by chance. I'm American by choice." And he's right. And that always resonated with me, to pay attention to what I had in front of me, all the opportunity I had, and to make sure that I capitalized on everything I could. And each one of his children, I believe, did the same. They built the American dream for us. We look like any other family here in the United States. They always taught us about our roots, the love of our country, the love of their country, which is our country as well. But they provided for us. We did everything any other American kid did. But I always sort of felt a little different on the inside. Like, I just wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a lunchbox with the Jetsons on it. But my mom sent me to school with a little hummus sandwich in a brown paper bag, and all the kids would make all this noise about, "Ooh, what is that?" But you guys all love hummus now, right? My mom was ahead of her time. But back to the hijab. Why did she decide to wear it? In all those years, until she was about 68, she never wore it. My mom and my dad went to do the Hajj. The Hajj is simply the pilgrimage that's required of a Muslim if you're physically and financially able to do it. And of course, my parents were able to do that, and so they went and performed the Hajj, which is done in Mecca. And when they came back, my mom had this thing on her head. And we're like, Mom, why are you wearing that thing on your head? My dad didn't really like it. He never asked her to wear it. Yeah, he still doesn't like it. And she kept it on. And we thought it was a thing and it was going to pass, but it did not pass. And that's when my mom started wearing the hijab. So she was probably 68 years old. But the hijab changed how people treated my mother, and I never realized it. But I'll give you an example. One day, my mom and I were traveling to Florida, and being the nice daughter that I am, I bought her a first-class ticket. I had to wait to get upgraded, so I was late to the gate. She was at the gate trying to board the plane with her first-class boarding ticket, and the man was screaming at her, saying, "Ma'am, we are only boarding first class." And so I ran up there and I said to him, "Why are you screaming at my mother?" He said, "I told her we're only boarding first class." I said, "Well, she has a first class ticket." But he couldn't hear her. He was busy listening to her hijab. And it shook me up. It really actually made me very angry. We boarded the plane and we went our way. But even last year, my dad and my mom were in Florida alone. My dad was parking the car. He doesn't park cars very well. And some man got angry with him, and he told him to roll down his window. So my dad rolled down his window, and the man screamed at him, "Go back to where you came from." And my mom and dad, actually more my dad, was scared. And he pleaded with my mother, "Please take off that hijab. They would not know us any differently except for you wearing that." And none of us were there with them, and it actually shook us all up. But my mom did take off the hijab for the moment, and she did for the duration of the trip. But she put her hijab on again because it brought her back to her roots. It reminded her of her faith and of her roots. And along those lines, I always wanted to get back to my roots. I do a lot of community support, help, work, volunteerism, but I always wanted to do something back that would help the people that were just like my mom and dad who came to this country, some of them without a home like my mom, some people like my dad who just wanted a chance to make a better life for himself and his children. And so I decided to talk to my sister Rhonda, who led an Audiological Mission trip to the Middle East. And I said, "I'm going to go with you on this trip." And she said, "Great, join us." So I went with her to do this volunteer work. And I had been to the Middle East many times. This time was a little bit different. We got there to Jordan, where my mom's family had lived. It didn't look any different. It was chaos, there were dirty streets, no organization. But with 30 people that went with us, most of them American, we get to this dilapidated building, and all of a sudden, all these people open all these suitcases, and they retrofit this thing into a clinic. There's one room for people to test their hearing. There's one room to clean the ears. There's one room for artwork for children to express themselves. Because why did they lose their hearing? A lot of them lost their hearing because they came from war-torn countries. Iraqis, Syrians, Palestinians who've been there for decades. And we were there to help them restore their hearing. And my job this time was to be an interpreter, which should be relatively easy. You just take one word and you translate it into another word. Well, this particular time, it was easy in the beginning, and I was following families. Well, as I was following this one family, I became very drained. And I couldn't figure out why I was becoming drained. But this little boy, his name's Muhammad, he had to have his ears cleaned. He was screaming bloody murder because it hurts. He had impacted wax. God knows how long it was there. And he went to the drawing room to settle down for a little bit, and then I took him into the audiologist. And the audiologist sat him down on his chair. The parents stood behind him, the audiologist in front of him to help him. And she put her hand under his vocal cords and said, "Say mama." And he said, "Mama." She said, "Muhammad, say Baba." He said, "Baba." And all of a sudden, he got this huge smile that went from one ear to the other, which I learned was the hearing smile. The first time he heard his voice again. And it was amazing. and awe-striking. And to see his parents with the tears in their eyes, knowing that their child had a chance to potentially go out and get educated and get out of a refugee camp and maybe go on with their life was amazing to me. And so here's some more of those hearing smiles. This trip had a huge impact on me. And when I came back, it was incredible. And I decided that we take our hearing for granted. In fact, we have so much coming at us all the time, we can't even discriminate what's what. And we have our own biases in our head, and a lot of times we listen to things that help us reinforce our biases. And I'm no different. I do the same thing. In fact, 10 years ago, I met a woman named Barbara. Barbara was perfect. She had perfect hair, perfect shoes, perfect purse, perfect suit. And in my mind, she got up in the morning and somebody opened the door for her to leave, handed her coffee, she got in her car, she was whisked off to work. That was Barbara. She had money and power, and she was an executive at a healthcare company, and I happened to be a lowly volunteer that helped them out. And my job for that organization was to help them raise money. And I just always inside felt like those administrators don't dig deep enough. And so I decided one day I'm going to challenge that little Barbara thing, that perfect little thing. And as we were leaving a meeting, I said, "Hey, Barbara, what do you think about us having a party at your house? We could raise a lot of money there." She took the rock out of my hand. She said, "Sure, that'd be great." And so we planned a party at Barbara's house. And for the next 5 years, we did that party. And we raised a lot of money. In fact, at the last one, we raised over $1 million. And as we did this, we became fast friends. We traveled, we spent time with family, we worked together, we played together, we did good in the world, I hope, together. And one day she said to me, "Hey, I want to go on that mission trip with you." And she did. And she's gone to many of them. But this last trip, something really interesting happened. You know, I failed to tell you about the refugee camps. When you go there, you have to prepare yourself. It's not very clean, there's dust, there's beating sun, there's obviously no air condition. The people there are just, their noses are running, their clothes are dirty, and you have to decide if you're going to drink any water or eat anything by looking at the bathroom. That's the first thing you do before you do anything else. Is there a bathroom? Is there a toilet? Is there a toilet seat? Is it a hole in the ground? You make your decisions. Well, over those 5 years that we've been going there, Barbara never went to the bathroom because she's perfect, remember? But on this last day of the last mission trip that we went on, Barbara said, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" She's asking me for help. I said, "Sure." "So will you guard the door while I go to the bathroom?" I said, "Sure." And it didn't occur to me right then what was happening, but I stood there guarding the door, and then all of a sudden, something happened to me. I start grinning from ear to ear. That was my hearing smile, seeing that that bias I had in my head was so wrong about Barbara. And so I want to share with you what some of these hearing smiles look like.
Sharing stories with friends at home, now connected when I used to feel alone. The laughs are louder in perfect tune. Our time together is gone too soon. Capture every moment and hear the world surrounding me, bringing us together to go from me and you to we. Finally I can hear the music, finally I belong to the world that I've been missing, and now I hear what matters most to me. Finally I can hear the music, I can now go on with the dreams that were fading. My life was given back to me. The things you do come back around to you. The good inside, the ones who care.
So while it's important for those children to hear, it's also important to be heard. And my hope is that we can listen to one another, to be heard, and that we also hear what's being said. And I want to thank you for listening to me.